how warm it is in Cape Town. Okay, we're going to get going. So just to let you know who I am, my name is Peter, but normally in the teaching environment, you can call me that, I don't mind, or you can call me Sir, or you can call me Mr. S. When I was teaching overseas, they struggled with my surname, so they just called me Mr. S. And I'm the teacher taking this class. I've taught maths for about 15 years now, and I've taught mainly in Cape Town, South Africa, where I'm from. But I also was lucky enough to teach in Tanzania for a bit. And yeah, I am a passionate maths teacher. And helping me will be Anya. Anya, I don't know if you want to tell the students a bit about you, what name you prefer, etc.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Anya. It's A-N-J-A. Yeah, so I'm also a teacher. You guys can call me ma'am or Miss A or Miss V. My surname is Van Eden. Any of those I'm quite fine with. Whatever works best for you guys. I'm quite flexible. Thanks. I'll hand it back to Sir.
Fantastic. So guys, if we could just start with a bit of housekeeping, if we could make sure that everybody's microphones are on mute. So I'm going to definitely ask you to participate, and I'm definitely going to ask you to put stuff in the chat. But there's two things. Yeah, the most important things are being able to mute and unmute your mic, and then also being able to talk in the chat. And I'll give you a chance to practice that shortly. So yeah, so that's where we'll be taking this class. Just some important information. Before we do this, I want to get a sense of how many of you were in the classes last year. So if you were in the class last year, can you give us a thumbs up? And if you were not in the class last year, give us a thumbs down. Just a quick way for me to get a feel, because there have been some changes, and I want to explain kind of about those changes, how many of you. So thumbs up. Can I have a thumb? If you were with us last year, my pen's a bit thick, I'll go not. So Anya, what is the mix that we're seeing? Is it about a 50-50 split?
I wouldn't really say it's up and down 50, 40, 60 or so. We've got a couple of newcomers, but also quite a few old faces here. So that's really good. I'd say it's between 40, 60 to 50, 50.
Fantastic. Okay. So guys, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you through some of the changes. So the main thing is Watobe has a new website, and everyone gets a 2-week free trial on the website. And in order to get that 2-week free trial, you go to watobe.co.za and you ask your parent or caregiver to sign up. And when you sign up, that's when you get the free trial, but you have to sign up. Now, when you sign up, you get your brand new login. You get your brand new login name and password that gives you access to the live classes and quizzes every week on the website. Now, this week you got sent a Zoom link. In future, the Zoom links will actually be sent through the website. And so the main focus is that the website is going to be really important this year, much more important than it was last year. You need to get this done before Friday to make sure you can carry on attending the classes and do the quizzes. If you're wondering about what happened to the old Watobe app, we don't use it anymore, but everything you need will be available through the website. Okay, and so just the moral of the story is the website is the place you want to be, and everything you need will be on the website. So I just want to stop for a moment and see, are there any questions in the chat, or does anybody want to raise their hand and ask a question before I properly get started? Are there any questions?
I don't see anything in the chat or so. Guys, if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand. If you're too shy to speak, you're more than welcome to pop your question in the chat.
Okay. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about me. I don't know Yeah, so basically, like I said, I'm in good old Cape Town, but I have traveled throughout the country, and I even went a little bit up here once. And so I'll be teaching you from here. My philosophy on maths is a lot like exercise or going to the gym. I'm not someone who thinks you're either a maths person or you're not a maths person. I think that when you start, like anything like exercise, you can get a few stiff muscles and you can get a few, it takes a while to develop the muscle memory, but everyone can do maths if you put in that productive struggle time. And so that's what I'm going to be trying to do with you, is I'm going to be trying to engage you in productive struggle. And I believe that, yeah, everybody can learn maths. My productive struggle in my personal life this year is cooking. So I'm not a particularly good cook. And so I'm going to use the same method that you guys are going to use to learn maths to learn cooking. I'm going to try with something simple. Maybe the first couple of times I'll overcook it or undercook it. But if I keep practicing, no doubt I will get better over time, and I can become maybe not a chef, but I can definitely become a better cook than I am currently. So that's my 2022 goal. Some other things about me: I love reading, I love the guitar, I love hiking, and I love tennis. Absolutely love it. And so, Anya, I'm going to hand over to you. Anya is my teaching assistant. She's helping me throughout the classes. She'll be interacting with you. I've got some pictures here, Anya, and if you could just give us a feel for what these pictures represent.
Right, hi everyone. So as I've mentioned before, my name's Anya. I'm also based in Cape Town in Blouberg, but I'm originally from Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. I've got family there, so I go to the Eastern Cape quite often. On my side, as you guys can see, I'm really into my gaming. I grew up like PlayStation mad, so I enjoyed my favorite games of Spyro and Crash Bandicoot. As you guys can see, I've got two lovely Injas there, two lovely dogs. They're my babies, and they're the world to me in the little fresh bandanas. And then if we scroll down a bit more, right, as you guys can see then in the next picture, just below the dogs, sorry, Peter there. I'm also, last thing that I wanted to share, I'm really into gardening. I've got a lovely little patch outside. I grow my own veggies and salad that I try to use in cooking. So yeah, I really enjoy my cooking, and hopefully I can show Peter a thing or two for cooking and gardening, and he can do something with maths. So there's a trade-off there. Right, I'll hand back to him. Thank you.
So Anya, I was thinking just that. I was thinking, I feel like while we're doing this, you're going to teach me about that, and I'm going to keep practicing productively. Okay, so we did this a little bit already, but I'd just like to get a feel for where you guys are in the country. So could we just do this again? Just basically where you are in the country. I think some new faces have joined us. So I am in Cape Town. I'm in a little place called Fishhook. Most people know Cork Bay. It's right at the end of the Southern Peninsula. And so that's where I am. But could you just put in the chat where you are in the country, and just so we get a feel for the group. Like, do we have anybody from the Free State? Plate? My sister was there last week. Plate, beautiful place. Beautiful. Lots of people from Gauteng, Mbali, Cape Town, George. Oh, George is like something out of the Lord of the Rings. It's beautiful.
Hey, we've got a PE local, sir. We've got Gqeberha here.
PE in the house. Carice. There's Maya. So Gauteng, Cape Town and Gauteng, or Western Cape and Gauteng, are definitely the majority. Buchle, Kenneth, Narcissa, Richards Bay, KZN. Welcome, welcome. Oh, fantastic. It's so wonderful, guys, that you could join us from around the country. And I think that as the weeks go by, I'll get to know many of you. And there will be time for us to kind of know a bit more about you as students. But it's lovely to get a feel for what and where you are in the country. It's the magic of the internet if we do it well. So I want to ask you another question now. I want to ask you, if someone said to you, I'm going to pay for a 2-week trip for you to anywhere in the world, I'd love to know where you would choose to go. It gives me a feel for, kind of who you are. So if you had a 2-week, let's say someone said, I'm going to give you $10,000 and you have to spend it on a 2-week trip, where would you go? I would love to get to know that about the class. And I'll tell you where I would go if someone gave me $10,000. Japan or Italy, Maldives, Bali, New Zealand. Let me move the chat to the screen so everyone can see. Anya, can you see the chat stream now on the?
No, it's not on the screen. I'm still viewing it from my second screen.
Okay. No, that's fine. But I'll read it out. Italy, England or Paris, USA, Kuwait, Brisbane, quite a few New Zealands. Oh, Greece, Kuwait, Japan. Yeah, Japan just feels mystical. Hey, the cherry blossoms and all those things. South Korea. South Korea comes up a lot too, huh? Okay. Can I ask you one more question, guys, before we get going? What would you want to do in those countries? So if you, Bukle, you were going to South Korea, what do you want to do there? Mezole, what would you go to in Australia? I'd love to know what you, what interests you about these places. And then I'll tell you mine as well. Japan, the cars. The cars are interesting in Japan, and they're also quite cheap. Cars depreciate a lot in Japan, so you can get cars quite cheaply. The cultures and traditions. Yeah, I love traveling, guys. It's one of the best things that I've done, is getting a feel for how the world is the same. It's so the same everywhere, and it's also so different in some places. And I really love traveling. It's one of my favorite things to do. Hot air balloon trips in Turkey, the food and culture in Japan, Korea, the food. So I take it we're sushi fans. I'm not a sushi fan. I feel quite out in the world at the moment. All the cool kids like sushi. Or at least that's what I'm told. Nizole, Australia. Australia is beautiful, but it's hot. Clothes in Italy are fantastic. Okay, so I see you guys, you've got lots of wonderful interests, and that is fantastic. And thank you for sharing that with me. It just helps me get a feel for the group that we're dealing with. And no doubt as time goes by, we will get to know each other even better. But it does, like Anya said, sounds lovely. So I just want to do a quick little thing about how to prepare your learning environment. So just a couple of basic rules. You want to find a dedicated space. So, a corner of your room, a dining room table. You want to be sitting up. If you're lying down and watching, unfortunately, you're just not going to retain it in the same way. So we're sitting up and you're being active in this lesson. Now, I know so far it's mainly been typing, but essentially we want you, later in the lesson, you'll be doing things. And I want to make sure that you have a pen or pencil and a book nearby. So these are the main things. Oh, and preferably somewhere quiet where your attention won't get disturbed. Anya, would you want to, anything else? Have I missed anything, or in terms of
just
the guidelines?
Yeah, just one thing I would like to add also, guys, if you're working, obviously it actually goes with doing quite also, but make sure that you don't have your siblings or so that might bother you, that you have your privacy when you have your lesson, because they might distract you and all that. That's the only thing I would like to add. Okay, yeah. So try and get as distraction-free. Oh, calculator, yes. So sometimes we'll use our calculators. Today, probably not so much, but it is good to have one on standby just in case. Are there any other suggestions from the group? What have you found
works well working online. If you've got any suggestions, put your suggestions in the chat now. This is what I find. I know that students have to be engaged in working. It is helpful if you can to have a bigger screen. If the screen is smaller, it can work, but it is helpful to have a bigger screen where possible. And the other thing that you could do, I call this the gym buddy effect. Now, it's not quite the same, but whenever I am doing something new and trying to form a new habit, I always have a gym buddy who would do it at the same time. So maybe you can get one of your friends, or you can have someone who always like messages you to see, okay, guys, are we going to do the maths now? Who can kind of hold you accountable. I think that's good. And water. I see the tip, water. I have my water here, guys, because it's cooking. And so I think that's good. Put headsets on so that no one disturbs. That is such a good tip. So it goes to this idea of preparing yourself to learn. You guys are smashing it. I can see you're ready to learn. And yeah, so you've actually so good. You've turned all your mics off and you've muted them. I would love to maybe if somebody's feeling brave enough, if they could just say hi from wherever and how you. It's so lovely to hear. So it's seconds. Put your hand up, and we can use the hand up function, and then Anya will give you the floor to just give us a quick little hello. So who is? I'll just give you a moment or two.
No hands as of yet. Again, if you guys would like to mention something or chat with us, so just raise your hand. Otherwise, you're welcome to share in the chat. That'll work as well.
And just a welcome to Hlumela, Nizole, Ontatile.
We've got a hand. We've got from, is it Suzanne or Suzanne has got a question?
Go ahead, Suzanne. Lovely to hear your voice. Unmute your mic and let's hear from you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, perfectly.
I just want to say, my name's actually Suzanne. It's Rua. So, yeah.
Suzanne?
Yeah. It's Rua. R-U-A-H.
Fantastic. And Suzanne, where are you in the country?
Cape Town.
Cape Town. So you're cooking tonight as well?
No.
You must be in a cooler part of Cape Town.
Yes.
All right. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, fantastic. Are there any other hands that are up?
I don't see any other hands at the moment. I think we're all just a bit shy in our shells, but hopefully that'll be sorted out soon.
No, you definitely get used to this environment, guys. As you start, it starts to become more natural each time you do this. I remember this from last year. Okay, so basically, I'm going to go on to today's main topic, which is equations, and it's in this first unit. This unit is going to be on equations and inequalities. And I know that the last 2 years at schools has been crazy because we've lost so much learning time. So we really are going very close to the very beginning. We're starting from the beginning and we're really trying to build a good structure for you guys. But just to start off with, at its most basic level, I love this picture in order to kind of get a good feel for equations. So give me a thumbs up if you've seen this picture with an equation before, or this idea of a scale. If you've seen the idea of an equation compared to a scale, give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't, give me a thumbs down. I'll give you a moment more to. So have you ever heard your teacher talk about an equation as a scale? Ontatile says no. Maya says no. Harry says yes. Isola says no. Okay. I'm going to try to show you why I think the scale is such a useful idea to keep in mind when you learn about equations. Thanks for your input, guys. I see all those hands coming through. It's fantastic. It gives me such good sense of what I'm kind of working with. And please keep those thumbs up and thumbs downs coming through. When I think about an equation, which is the main topic of this unit, and the main focus today is what's called basic equations. So what is an equation? At its core meaning, an equation is a relationship between two things. Or an equation represents a relationship between two things. And so this is why a scale is such a good metaphor, because if the scale was out of balance, we wouldn't be able to use this equal sign. We'd have to use like a greater than or less than sign. So a scale, when each side is physically in balance, we can see that the two sides must be equal to each other. Now, the other thing about an equation is that the relationship between the one side, in this case, x plus 8, it's somehow said to be equivalent to this side, which looks different, which is a little bit of a strange thing to start with. But let's see how the metaphor of the scale works here. So if you look at the scale, we know that the two sides are equal, but we don't know how heavy or what is in the box with an X. We know that if we count these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 kilogram wheels. That's why we've got an 8. And there's one block that's an X, which is here. Now, if we go to the other side, there are 2 blocks that are X, and then there are 3 1 kilogram weights. So we think of the X's as variables, and we physically know from this idea that, that these two must be equal because they're essentially the one side is not drooping lower than the other. So how would we solve an equation? Well, what it means to solve an equation is to solve for the unknown value of this block here. And if you think of a scale, if we take the same thing away from both sides, the scale will stay in balance because I've removed the same thing from both sides. And so intuitively, we all understand that. Now, what I need to do next is I'm going to take away 1 from this side and 1 from this side. I'm then going to take away 1 from this side and 1 from this side. Notice how I always do the same thing. And if I take away another last one here, all that I've got left is this X on this side. How many numbers do I have left here? Well, if I count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have 5. So simply by using a scale, by doing the same thing to both sides, I found that the answer is X is 5. Now, the good thing about an equation is that you can always check whether or not you're right by checking its equivalence by subbing into each expression. So on the left-hand side, I have 2 times 5 plus 3, which looks like this. And on the right-hand side, I have 5 plus 8. Now you'll see that this gives me 2 times 5 plus 3 gives me 13, and 5 plus 8 gives me 13. And so in fact, I know I've got the correct answer. Now, obviously, when you solve equations, we don't always do that method, but that's the essential idea behind it. When we solve an equation, most of you will have seen this before, or maybe you haven't. This is the main method that students get taught. You get told that I take away X from both sides because there's an X here, or maybe you even get, maybe it suddenly looks like this. And then you go 8 minus 3. And what students kind of are told is that you take away 3 from both sides. Okay, and when you do that, this gets knocked out. Actually, it's a little bit cluttered. Let me take that away. So when you do that, you take away 3 from both sides. That was like the canceling out. And then what you do is you are going to take away X from both sides. So your answer is X is 5. So the basic idea throughout the section, you will see me coming back to this idea of a scale, because a scale forces you to always do the same thing to both sides. And what we're aiming to do in an equation is to get a variable by itself so that we can work out what the solution to the equation is. Give me a thumbs up if that made broad sense to you. Give me a thumbs down if you felt like, I sort of, didn't really enjoy that. So I'll wait for some thumbs to come through. So that's why we use scale.
Oh,
okay.
It's good.
Fantastic. And Anya, how's the writing size? Is everything looking okay? Can you see clearly and all that?
Yeah, everything is quite fine. I think from my side, when you write, there's like a second or two lag.
Okay.
And then, so just take note of it. I've got the Musa here in the chat. The Musa's mentioned, man, the scale method for me, it's a bit confusing, but the second method I understand very well. So I can also relate to that. I taught the second method in the classroom. So I think they're more used to having the variables on one side and taking your constants across to the other side.
Perfect. Yeah, so in reality, we don't always use the scale idea in terms of solving equations all the time because it's a bit slow. But the idea that things are always in balance and you always do the same thing, that's a concept that I want to keep coming back to. But I totally agree. So I just want to show you one more thing before we move on. And that is that if we look at this triangle over here, we can build an equation from this. Now, this is an equilateral triangle, which means all three sides are the same length. And so if we wanted to draw a relationship between the perimeter and the sides, maybe we could call this S, and that S, because they're all the same length. Now, a relationship that comes out of this triangle is that the perimeter is equal to 3 times the side. So this is a relationship or an equation. And the moment we have one of the values, we can automatically work out the other. So an example would be, let's say that I now tell you that instead of being S, this side length is 5. Well, now we can say 3 times 5, and the perimeter is 15, because we just added these. So this is an example of a simple equation as a relationship. And then some other, well-known things that we could do is we could also say, for example, here, if we think of this as a rectangle where the length on each side is the same and the breadth is the same, we could build an equation for the perimeter that looks like this: 2 lengths and 2 breadths. Now, what's different about this equation is that there are in fact 3 variables. There's a P for perimeter, there's an L for length, and a B for breadth. So equations come in different ways, but essentially they are relationships between things, and often we take them from situations and then use them to solve a problem. Okay, so that's the basics of an equation, and now we're going to talk more about how we solve them. Okay, so we're going right back to grade 9 here, and I want everybody to go through the system. If you feel very comfortable, okay, let's start with this. Everybody does one question from the green light. If you feel comfortable that you've got that right, and you check your answer, you then do one question from the orange light. And then if you feel that you're comfortable doing that, you do one question from the red light. And I'm going to give you about 5, no, let me give you 4 minutes to do this. So you first of all, try and do one here. If you can do one here and you get it, you feel like you've got it right, you can test your answer. You move on to this one. If you do one here and you get that right, you move on to this one. And your clock starts now. Get that pen and paper ready. And I'm going to drink some water. And then Anya, yeah, we're going to give the students a chance to practice, just to see, can they get these, what methods would they use? And then I'll go through them afterwards.
Okay. Can I just ask, just for now, let's give everyone a chance. So don't, if you have your answers, brilliant, and you've tested, just keep them on your page. Don't share them in the chat. We first want everyone to try before we share it publicly.
Yeah. And I'll even say, like, if you're worried about which one to do, let's start with this one. And then we'll choose this one. And then the last one. So that's if you get stuck in one of them, stay in the green and keep doing green until you feel comfortable. But if you feel like you've got the green right, then you go to orange. And if you're just doing one of each, then the blue ones are the ones I'm going to emphasize for now. Okay, I'm going to give you some time on that, guys.
If you've managed to do one from each light or so, and you're quite comfortable and you've tested your answers and everything seems well, go ahead and do 2 or 3 from each. Why not, you know, push yourself a bit and see what you can do.
Totally. So if you're stuck on the green light, for those who are moving on, that's fine. You can ignore me. But I'm just going to give you an example of how we would do P. In this question, in order to get the X by itself, I'm going to take away 10 from both sides. So at the moment, it looks like this. If I took 10 away from each side, what would I get? Well, on this side, I would get X. And on this side, I would get -7. Let's see if this works. 10 plus -7 does give me 3. Okay, so for those guys who are struggling with that, do another green one and see how it goes. For those who feel comfortable, go on to orange and onto red. So a key principle will always be, you must do the same thing to both sides whenever you are doing an equation. In this case, let's see if I've got I took away 10 from both sides. That was the thing I did here. But in other questions, you may have to do different things to get the variable by itself.
Let's see if there's maybe, I know we've still got the timer going, but is there anyone that's already managed to do one question from each column?
And maybe you could put your answers, don't give your working, but just say, for example, if you did N, what answer did you get for N? I will do N in a moment, but I want to see what answer. And then if you did T, put your answer for T in the chat as well. And that way we can get a feel for what you guys have done. So these are what are called simple linear equations. And so we're just making sure the mechanics of solving equations are correct and that you've got a solid base to move forward from.
Okay, the numbers are coming in a bit. We've got a few for N. We've got a few answers for 5. For N, we've also got X is equal to 0. Okay. I saw another one. And then we've got a few numbers for K and T as well. For T, we've got, yeah, so it's coming through slowly but surely. We've even got answers for P. So I'm very happy with that. You guys must keep it up. And we've even got answers for W. So people are doing, well, I don't see a W.
But you know, that's
well, you did an extra question.
You are winning at life. Okay. So basically the main idea is in the first questions, you had to add or subtract something to both sides. In the orange questions, you had to divide or multiply. And then in the red ones, you had to do a combination. So I'm just going to do a selection. So at the moment, I would really like there to be one U by itself, and instead there are 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 5. And then what I get left with is U is 5. So is that the answer that's coming through in the chat?
Yeah, definitely. Overall, we've got a 5, just 1 or 2 people that missed it slightly. I'm just trying to check here. So another possible, someone here said x is equal to 0. Just remember 5u means 5 times u. So if you times on one side, then you need to divide on the other side.
Let's just do the q as well. So if we take 8t equals 6, what do we do in this case? Well, we divide both sides by, let's use a different color, by 8 because of this here, and we get t is equal to 6 over 8 or 6 over 8 or 3/4. That's a bit tricky. So this one over here is the one I've just done in the corner. And the main idea there is I divided both sides by 8, and that's how I isolated the t by itself. Okay, now the last one, and I will do more questions. So Anya, if you could just scan the chat and see if there are any particular areas where students need more practice, but I'm going to go through the red light one. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take away 5 from both sides to start with. And that is going to give me, let's have a look, that's going to give me 6x equals 15. And then after that, I now want to deal with the 6. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And so we're going to get x, or 6x over 6 is 1x, or x, and 15 over 6 is just going to be 6 goes into 15 twice with 3 left over, so 2.5 or 2 3/6 is the answer. Now, I'll leave that up for a moment. I can do another one from the set. Can you put your thumbs up if you want me to do another one from this collection, and thumbs down if you want me to move on to a different type of question? So thumbs up if you want me to do another one from this set, thumbs down if you want me to move on. Okay, I see the thumbs coming through. Okay.
We also have a thumbs up from Blessing and Narcissa.
So what I would suggest, guys, is if I'm going a little bit fast for you, the good news is this is recorded and put on YouTube. So you can always go back and re-look at this at a slightly slower pace if I am losing some of you, but the basic ideas will be reinforced in future. Yeah.
Sorry, just on that, so I don't really do it now if you want to leave it for the video, but I've seen 2 students have asked if you could please redo number N and redo number D, or maybe just even scroll up a bit. I think they might have missed your explanation. Otherwise, they need to watch the video.
Yeah. Okay. So for N is sitting over here. So this is N over here. Sorry, I feel like I'm gone back to coloring in school, but I'm just trying to make it clear. So there is the answer to N over there. So basically in N, I had to divide both sides by 5. Okay, I'm going to move on. Slightly different type of question here. So in order to move to the next stage, everybody has to do the green. Okay, so A, B, C, D. Once you've done your 4, I want you to post your answers in the chat. Then what you need to do is you need to go on to the orange one. I'm going to call this, so E, A, B, C, E, F, G, H. So once you have done these first ones, these are equations that we have to solve by inspection. So you have to figure out what number goes in the missing block. And you can put, I would say, do all 4 of them and then put your answers in the chat. Then for the orange question, I've given you a sort of strange equation where it says you are given that a square minus a triangle is equal to 29 minus 5. Give 4 sets of values for the square and the triangle that will balance the statement. So that's a little bit harder. And then the people who are feeling on top of the world today, you need to look at these statements, which basically give you something and decide which of these are true or false, or which are true. Okay, I'm going to give you now another 3 to 4, well, at least actually 5 minutes now. I'll give you 5 minutes to give this a go. And this is still equations, but they're just phrased slightly differently.
So just on that note, I see Nosiso has asked if you can go back to just a normal equation. So I don't know if some students are just struggling with the basic concept of solving an equation or so.
So what I would suggest, Nosiso, is I would go, well, think about, why don't you do this? Let's practice, Nosiso, on looking at the green question. I want you to just practice on this green one. If you want to practice the same idea, you could think of that square as being an X. And can you practice solving these equations using the skills above? And then we can get extra practice for the same skill. And does that make sense? So we're going to kind of use that same skill.
Yeah, so Narcisa, what they're saying is basically wherever you see a square or so, you can replace it for X. It'll be very similar to what we did before this. So if it's a number A, 5 minus 0 needs to be equal to 9 minus 0. So 5 minus 0 is obviously 5. So 9 minus what gives you 5? That's the kind of reasoning you need to get to.
Yeah. And that's called a simple linear equation, and it's the building block of equation. So it's really, until we must stay with green until we're ready to go to orange. Orange has actually got 2 variables. And so there's actually a little bit more give and take. And then the red one is, you have to read that quite carefully. And there's some terminology there that I'll go over at the end. But I just want to give everyone a chance to do all of these first without talking too much. So I'm going to play I should play the elevator music now. And keep the answers coming through on the chat. That'll be good to see.
Something that I also taught when I was still teaching, and that if you get confused with X and squares and that, just replace it with the word what. So if you've got like 5x equals 20, you can say, okay, 5 times what gives you 20? Because I think that's also easier to process. If you struggle with these, you can do that as well, because I find it's easier for us to say what and get an answer.
Yeah. Okay, I see some answers coming through there. So A, B, C, D. So the first one, 5 equals 9 minus 4, then 3. So that is going to be 5 for this one. That's 2. So then this one is going to be 6. 9 plus 3 is 12. So then this one must be 8. Okay, and so we call this solving by inspection because we haven't gone through any steps. We've kind of done this all in our head. And often you can solve equations by inspection, but as they get harder, you tend to have to use some sort of algorithm or method. Let's try and do this one now and think about what set of values can give us 29 minus 5. Well, we know that what that is, that's going to be 24. So what values, when we go something minus something, give us 24? Okay, I see Nizole's got one for us. 48 minus 24. So your one square is 48 and your one triangle is 24. What else? We've got 25 minus 1. We've got, thank you, Anya. We've got 30 minus 6. We've got 27 minus 3. You know what? I just realized it feels like, guys, you could create so many of these. So what we say here is there's multiple solutions to this equation. Can you see how, the numbers that you're giving, these pairs of numbers, there are actually multiple solutions to this equation because of the fact that there are 2 variables in this equation, as opposed to just one variable over here. Well done. You are winning at life, people, winning at life. Now, this last one has some interesting terminology like additive inverses and additive identity, which you don't have to know, but I'll tell you about them as we go through this question. And I'm going to go through it in a bit more detail because I know it was tricky. So this says, if you've got 7 plus a triangle is 0, then which of the following statements are true? The value of the triangle is 7. Well, I think that that statement is not true, or we might say false. And the reason we say it's false is 7 plus 7 does not give you 0. Then the next one, triangle can be any whole number. I don't think it can be any whole number. So I would say that's false, because if I made the triangle 1, 7 plus 1 does not equal 0. 8 does not equal 0. So that's false. The value of the triangle, sometimes we call delta in maths. The value of the triangle is 0. Well, 7 plus 0 is 0. No, that's also false. And then the value of delta is minus 7. Well, 7 plus minus 7 is, in fact, true. And then the triangle and 7 are additive inverses. Okay, this is actually true, because if you have an additive inverse, if you add something to its additive inverse, it will always basically get you back to where you started, which is 0. So as an example, the additive inverse of 3 is just going to be minus 3, because when you add them together, they undo what the original thing did. So inverse just means to undo something, and the additive inverse just means the number that when you add it to something, it undid what originally happened. Thanks, Anya, for those. Yeah, Anya's giving some lovely examples in the chat to give you a further sense of that. And then it says here, triangle is the additive identity for addition. So the additive identity is just whatever number you add to something to get the same thing. So for example, the additive identity, when you add it to 7, you still get 7. So it clearly has to be 0. And the additive identity is always going to be 0, because it's the only thing you can add to a number and still get that same number. I've probably gone, this sort of vocabulary is not actually that important, but I'm just mentioning it because the question is there. And Anya, you can always, if you can always add some more stuff there. Okay.
I think that's about it. I think the main thing, the only thing I want to bring up here, where we want to get you guys, and it's wonderful that you guys shared your answers, but a big thing in maths is once you can start explaining why you gave a certain answer, then it shows that you're learning. So try to be able, you might not be very good at it at the start, but if you can reason your answer, then it shows that you're learning. So make that your goal.
Yeah. So just give me a quick feel. If you feel the pace is too fast, give me a thumbs down. If you feel the pace is okay, give me a thumbs up. Just want a quick little vote. We're going to finish off soon, but I just want to get a quick feel for that. Okay, I can see the chat stream, so it seems, and I realize I'm not going to be able to, not everyone's going to be loving it, but again, we do have the recording, so you can rewatch it at a slower pace if needed. Okay, last question for the day. I've given you an equation here. X minus 3 is 12. The green thing is to find, let's make it 3 equations. Find 3 equations that are equivalent to this one using addition only. Then find 3 equations using, let's just say, subtraction and multiplication. And then the last one for red, find 3 equations that are equivalent to the one above using division and fractions. So to give you an example of what I mean, I'm going to say an equivalent one here would just be, if I added 7 to both sides, then this would give me the equation x plus 4 equals 19. This is an equivalent equation, unless I've made a silly mistake. It's always, yeah, that looks good. This is an equivalent equation to this one above, even though they look different. So I want you to try and do, in fact, yeah, try and do 3 of these, then do with subtraction, multiplication, and then the last one, do division. And if you could just put one of your answers in the chat when you're done. And then we're going to call it a day for today. And we've just kind of explored the idea of an equation today. And hopefully this has helped get you back into the rhythm of things.
I think on that note, sir, I think something I would like to add is, remember, sir, at the start you mentioned about scales and how scales work. Well, think of equations as being scales. So if you do something on the one side, should you not then do it on the other side? Think about that. So if you've got 2 kilograms here, you've got 1 kilogram here, you have to probably add something to get them even. So keep that in mind when you do this. Yeah.
Because remember, these are equivalent equations. So basically equivalent means they're still in balance. They would give you the same answer. I'll give another one here. If I added 10 to both sides, I would get x plus 7 on the one side, and I would get 22 on this side. And then for the last one here, if I added, let me say I add 2 to both sides, then I get x minus 1 equals 14. Now, what's so interesting is that all these equations are the same equation. If you look at what the answer is, the answer in the beginning was 15. The answer is still 15 for all 3 of these. So I just want you to think about that for a moment. Equations can look different, but still have the same answer if they're equivalent equations. Okay, I want to give a bit of time. Well, I'd love to see in the chat who has figured out an equivalent equation using subtraction and multiplication, and who has figured out an equivalent with division. I'd love to see in the chat to finish with that tonight.
We actually, sir, we've got Nazole has mentioned that x plus 3 squared is 24.
Oh my goodness, you're taking it up. Now you're using powers. Okay, Nazole, I'm going to say wait until lesson 4, because we're going to hit lesson 4 with that. But for the moment, I'm going to leave the quadratics to the one side. So this is kind of what I was thinking. If I take away, let's do this. If I take away 10 from both sides, then I would get the equation x minus 13 equals 2. So that would be an equivalent equation to the top using subtraction. And if I wanted to use multiplication, I need to be careful here. Let's say I multiplied both sides by 3, or sorry, by 2. Well, then I would get 2x minus 6 is 24. So that would be an equivalent equation. And I can check because I know the answer is 15. So 2 times 15 is 30. 30 minus 6 is 24. Okay. I see that, David. I see that, Ruha. You guys on the right track? And so let's just get one where we finish with division. So if you take the question x minus 3 equals 12, if I want to bring division, all of these questions so far, I've divided. If I do the same thing to both sides, it's still the same equation. So let's go divide by 2. Okay. So now I've got x minus 3 over 2. Actually, this is not going to work. Let's have a look. Let's times it by. Actually, I tell you what. Let me talk about division in the next one. I think it's going to be a little bit confusing if I go into that now. Have the same answer, and today has been showing you how to solve them and also how to work backwards with them sometimes. Okay, yes, and yeah, I'm going to get to the poll in a moment. So I just want to see a few more, if we could have a few more examples in the chat, that would be awesome. Three x is 45. Mbali, that is perfect. Well done. I think you've figured out, Mbali, that as long as I have the right answer, I can, yeah, no, that's fantastic. Anybody else got another equivalent equation? Do one more. Fantastic, Namusa. Okay, guys, so I know that you all had a long day, and so we're going to finish off the lesson. If we could just finish, and first of all, I want to say well done for being here. Well done for taking the time to make the effort to improve in your maths. This will be your first, gym session essentially, and so you might feel a bit stiff afterwards. You might feel a bit unsure. Don't worry. Like everything, the more you do it, the easier it will get. And I just want to finish with a poll so I can get a basic sense of what your experience was like today. And so, Anya, if I could ask you to release that poll.
I've done.
Fantastic. And then once you've you've answered the poll, if you could just give us some emoji love in the chat stream, give us a sense of how you're feeling after today. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What was your general feeling of the lesson? It would be lovely to see it in the chat. I've enjoyed doing it. I definitely have felt like it's been the first time in a while that I've done this, but like all things, the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And on the whole, it was, I really love that you're all around the country and we're doing this live. I just think there's something very cool about that. Okay, so if you could hopefully just vote in the poll there, just to give us a sense of your experience today, and we will try and learn from that going forward. And ironically, guys, I'm now going to the gym myself. Can you believe it? So I'm going to go to the gym and go and unwind for the evening and get my exercise so that my brain isn't buzzing when I try to go to sleep later.
Okay, we've got the polls in. Thank you so much, everyone. I don't know if anyone has any questions or so.
Yeah, guys, are there any, before we close for the evening, are there any questions? We're running a bit over time, but are there any final questions? Then I'm going to declare this lesson over, this first lesson. Well done and we will see you on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. Don't forget to go to the website to sign up properly and get your address. And I look forward to getting to know many of you in future weeks. Okay. Ciao for now. No, Musa, do you want more practice questions? I do have some practice questions that you can work on. But on Thursday, we will do a little practice quiz that we can use. So I think for today, if you do, I have any more. Okay, so we'll talk more about that on Thursday. For now, if you could just kind of go over the lesson that we did today, that would be fantastic. Okay, but I'll get back to you about that on Thursday. Okay.
Wednesday's